begin. We have been given this opportunity to continue discussion on the pending motion, which is a motion or a resolution to adopt the proposed amendments to the Constitution and bylaws. Is the body ready to deal with the question, or are we prepared to proceed where we left off previously? If you would please take your seats. It is difficult for those around you to hear or to participate effectively there. Thank you, and thank you so much for your cooperation so far. The chair recognizes the speaker at microphone number 6.
Hi. Oh, Nozomi Ikuda, delegate from the Ohio Conference. And I would like to say how much I appreciate the work that everybody has put into this. And I have just a couple of, I think, relatively minor suggestions that would really help us close a gap that, frankly, many of us still feel.
And are you putting this in the form of a motion?
Yes, I'm just, you know, we just now opened the session, so I'm coming to that part of my notes. Specifically, it would be on line 805, starting at 804, and that section following. Basically, in 3 instances in that paragraph, changing the number 12 in 2 instances to 15, and in 1 instance to 16. And then restoring the names of the groups that had been deleted. This, I believe, is consistent with the rules in terms of the clarification, because it is a lesser amendment than is currently being proposed.
If you are making a motion to amend, we need it to be in writing, and we need 1,000 copies. I'm sorry. Wrong information. And we need 3 copies on that, because it's difficult to follow along with where you are in the Constitution and bylaws. So if you would kindly do that, please.
I do have a visual, if that would help in the meantime, which is this.
Okay. Would you repeat your amendment, please? And we need you to stay close to the mic, because we're not able to clearly understand what's being said.
All right. Basically, it's to change the number, in terms of concept, it's to change the number of at-large representatives to 46. It would change the overall size of the board to 62 from 52, which is actually a relatively small percentage increase. It would overall continue the very significant decrease in the size of all the boards by about a 70% reduction in terms of all the people participating, and at least a 30% reduction from the current size of the Executive Council. So I believe that it is substantially in accordance with the principles and concepts that is currently being entertained. What it would do is it would create a win-win situation for the people who really embrace this idea of diversity, and it would also create a win-win for the people who still hold dear to this concept of representation, quite frankly. It would create an extravagant welcome. It would help us imagine the possible.
I have to interrupt you, because the motion is out of order to the extent that not only does it affect the number that you're looking at, it impacts the entire structure, and so it becomes a substantive change which would require some significant notice to everyone. in order to be considered.
If I would beg to disagree, it is actually a less significant change than has been made.
I'm sorry, that is the ruling of the chair. You may wish to appeal the ruling of the chair, but remember that we are looking at the entire set of changes to the Constitution and bylaws. And just by changing the one number, it does have a significant impact on the entire structure.
You know, out of respect to this body, I would not ask for that kind of appeal. I would beg you personally to consider that this would be a way to create that bridge and that dialogue, that possibility that we've not really had at the level of the Synod. There have been lots of other places where conversation has been held. There's been an immense amount of pain. Some of that was articulated last night. I'm not trying to go back there. I'm trying to propose a positive solution. I would
We
beg you to
appreciate
consider
your
that.
comments, but your time for presentation is up. And unfortunately, you can appeal to me personally, but I'm working with the entire body here, and so they're the ones that would have to consider it, and we're working with the entire motion that's on the floor, which is to adopt the proposed resolution, the proposed amendments to the Constitution and bylaws. I appreciate what you're saying, but you may have to work at the changes that you want through another avenue.
I don't really see another avenue. I
Okay,
was really
need to
hoping this
call
might be it. That's all right.
the next speaker. Thank you. There is someone back on microphone number 3.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Christopher Jenkins, Massachusetts Conference. I guess the theme of my comment that the body does need to be streamlined. It's a valid goal, but I think we're going a little too far in that direction to address some concerns. There's some pain around diversity, some of which, to be honest, I don't completely understand, but I think it's there and needs to be respected. I actually reject philosophically, I reject the moving away from representational model. In fact, if anything, I'd like to make things more representative. I do not think that to have the boards of directors and the executive council in the same body is necessarily appropriate. I probably would have combined the boards but not the executive council, because those are different competencies, different skill sets, different job descriptions, and I think there is something to be said of expanding the pool of slots that you need. It gives people more of an opportunity to serve. Yes, it does have a little bit of a check and balance issue, whether you call it bicameralism or executive versus legislative. So I think to bring it all down to one smaller body all at once is maybe not the appropriate thing to do. I think the other advantage to two-body is that it provides for a couple of different models of representation for people who feel that different models are appropriate. I'd just like a couple more points. We talk about other nonprofits. I would like to suggest we're not just a nonprofit, we are a church. I think that should be considered. And also, one thing that came up last minute in my mind at least is that I wish that these had not all been presented, both the cleanup and the governance stuff at once, because we almost got bogged down in a theological discussion on what should have been a governance debate. I wish that those had been presented separately. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There is a speaker at microphone number 5. A point of order.
Yes, Meredith Jackson, Northern California Nevada Conference, a delegate for local church ministries. And I'm wondering just who, because this is not in a resolution form, I'm wondering who's in charge of implementation, in particular resources for ratification, because if as a delegate it's my responsibility to take this back to my local conference, I'm wondering what tools, because this is clearly a complicated issue, what tools will be available. And I don't see anywhere in here, or I don't know where to look for implementation guidelines.
My response to that is, if the proposal passes, it then has a series of steps to go through as it goes to conference minutes, to the conferences for ratification. 2/3 of them have to approve. And if it follows those sequences, I'm not sure where it is in your documents, then at some point the Executive Council will be responsible for beginning the implementation later down the road.
So my own conference discussion guide, so I'm wondering, Executive Council...
I'm sorry, you'll have to speak up a little louder. The folks here cannot hear you.
All right, a couple of years ago, my own conference utilized the discussion booklet that was produced, so are you telling me that Executive Council will be in charge of producing those resources? I just don't know who's going to do that, and I'm wondering.
I can only repeat, there is a process that includes how this gets implemented if the proposal is approved today.
Okay.
I'll try to get that to you. I don't have it on the top of my head right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see that we have a speaker on microphone number 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the speaker at number 2 to speak and one from number 3, and then we will get to number 6, if you would hang on there. Speaker at number 2.
Rod Kojima from Hawaii. We attempted to do something very similar in terms of changing of structure in the Hawaii Conference. We were inspired not to conform to the ways of the world, but to be transformed by the renewal of our minds. As our perceptions of ministry and mission changed, it informed how we should change the way that we governed ourselves. This change in structure must have a change in the way that we understand what mission is and who does mission. It is not good enough for us to change the structure without changing the way that we think and understand mission. Jesus' mission did not have representation, but responded to God's call. Our learnings need to be about the missional church as we live into this proposal. I'm speaking in favor of this motion. This structure of government is a missional model for us to do ministry in a postmodern world that makes us responsible to discern God's voice in our own settings and to find ways to participate in what God is doing.
Thank you. The speaker at microphone number 3.
My name is Jeff Whitman. I am the conference minister of the Missouri Mid-South Conference. I am an associate delegate with Voice Without Vote. I want to commend the people on the Unified Governance Committee for the fine work you've done over the last 2 years and the last 4 years. And say to you that I agree in concept with having a single governance model to guide the mission and ministry of this church. However, I am deeply troubled with guaranteeing at least 50% of the membership on this board to 10% of the membership of the United Church of Christ. And in that process, disenfranchising 90% of the membership of this church. Have you really considered who will be denied a spot at this table because of the color of their skin or their gender, things that they have absolutely no control over? In addition to that, I am troubled with the fact that our large membership, wealthy conferences could potentially have up to 3 people serving on this board, while the smaller membership churches in places like the Midwest, not where I serve, could be denied any representation on this board for up to 6 years. I would encourage the delegates to vote no. I think that the way that you're putting this board together is racist, it is unfair, and it disenfranchises the majority of the membership of our church. In addition, I left this hall this afternoon deeply troubled by a process that denied us the opportunity to have honest and open debate here, and instead was forced to sit through a manipulative process that I grew to resent more and more, and the people around me were getting angrier and angrier. I'm disappointed with the leadership of this church that rather than facilitating an open, honest conversation, put us through a process that I personally found very manipulative. I encourage you to vote no. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the speaker at microphone number 6.
Ben Moats, Pennsylvania Southeast Conference. I would like to propose an amendment. I believe the copies have been made available. on line 248 in regards to the Constitution. That is Article 8, paragraph 41, the last sentence of that paragraph. I would like to make the amendment that it read, such authorized standing may be terminated by the association. I also don't know if it's enough in intent with the one who is proposing it for it to simply be a friendly amendment, or if it's something we should vote on.
The chair has looked at the motion that was proposed, and the chair rules that the motion is a substantive motion to the extent that it is asking for a change to an authorized standing, which is something that would need additional research, and to the extent that the proposed line that you're starting with actually refers to language above it that is broader than the language that has been proposed, that motion would be out of order. We're going to microphone number 1, followed by microphone number 4.
William Piper Foote, Pennsylvania Southeast. While in reading the entire document, there are parts that if I were writing it, I wouldn't have done. I would have made the board larger. I would have required a broader representation, perhaps. But all in all, I think that it's a document that does what is needed at this time. It probably is not a final word, but I think it's the word that we need to speak at this time.
Thank you. And we're down to microphone number 4.
My name is Ryan Matthews, and I'm from the Ohio Conference. I proudly represent the Office of General Ministries as a delegate and am a member of the UCC Disabilities Ministries. I echo the comments that some people made that I appreciate the work that the Unified Governance Group has done for such a monumental and important task. We need to do something to continue to move this denomination into the future. However, I am deeply troubled by certain groups kind of being left out and ostracized. We're called not only as members of the UCC, but as Christians to lift up the oppressed and the marginalized, and to not only do that, but empower them to be able to move forward and prosper and lead in their own ways. And so when I see things like people with disabilities and people who are LGBT, and they are left with only one guaranteed seat at the table, that's troubling, because people with disabilities and gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgender are two groups that in church and society have been told time and time again, you're not welcome at the table. And I know that that is an at least, but it's a message that's being sent that it doesn't matter that you have those gifts. We're only worried about making sure we have one token. And that's bothersome, because this is the church that calls itself and proudly proclaims, and that I'm proud to proclaim, is open and affirming and accessible to all. Thank you.
Thank you. There are folks standing in and at microphone number 5, the point of order. So first speaker at number 5.
I actually just have a request, and it's from sitting in the area here.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I'm sorry. Is that better? I just had a request, a personal request from sitting in the area here, that I know that this is a very heated debate and it's very hard to not get emotional about it, but I think it's really important, out of respect and love for each other, that we don't clap wildly or groan when people speak. It would just be very respectful to not do that.
Thank you. Your point is well taken. There is another speaker at microphone number 5.
Herb Oliver, Maine. I thank you for listening to us. However, it appears to me that anybody who comes up to make a motion is told that it's out of order. And so with that respect, I call the question, because it's obviously, I'll just call a question.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is a second. The question has been called. The motion pending on the floor is resolved to adopt the proposed, whoops, I did it again, pardon me, to close debate. I'm sorry, we'll do it again. The question right now is to close debate first, and if you agree to close debate, then we will move on to the next question. And I didn't bring my little keypad, but you all have your keypads. So all those, let me wait. The motion is, if you vote in favor, we will close debate. You can hold off a second, folks. Let's make sure everybody understands what they're voting for. This is a call for the question. If you vote in favor of the motion, we will call the question and take a vote. If you vote against the motion, we will continue the debate. Okay. Press 1 if you vote in favor of the motion. Press 2 if you vote against the motion. Press 3 if you abstain from voting. You have 13 seconds less. Okay. We're going to call the question. Okay, based on the voting results, we are going to call the question. The motion on the floor is resolved to adopt the proposed amendments to the Constitution and bylaws, and that resolution in its entirety has been provided to you in writing on your tables. Let's see if our recorders are ready. In order to succeed, this vote requires a 2/3 vote of those voting. There usually is a question as to an abstaining vote. You vote to abstain because you choose not to vote, and therefore it does not count in the total. For those of you that vote in favor of the motion, please press 1 on your keypad. Those voting against the motion, please press 2 on your keypad. If you choose to abstain from voting, please press 3 on your keypad. If you wish to vote, you have 10 seconds or less. The motion has carried. Okay. Jim?